So good morning guys, taking the Sony rx10 Mark IV to the rainforest. Well, not a real one because I live in England, so I had to make do with this. Out very early in the morning, 5 AM leaving sort of time. So up and out and about, and unfortunately the weather was pretty grim, as you can see here, all the spray and everything coming up off the roads. Headed towards Wiltshire, and with a friend of mine, Natalie, with me, and a bit of a day out. Luckily the weather started to dry up, and we ended up actually with quite a nice day and all. I visited my grandparents' village where they used to live, and their gravestone, so it was a bit of a emotional day. We just I popped over there just to sort of just to say hi, really, kind of thing. And then obviously other family members nearby, so I saw my uncle. Unfortunately my auntie was at work, I think. So a brief visit there, and then popped back up near Reading, and found this place called the Living Rainforest. And also on the way, obviously some stunning roads like this, and this is brilliant. This was like a line of trees for about a mile, I think. And I just put this in here because it was just such a lovely thing to drive down this road, and it just beautiful countryside. And just thought, it's a nice little thing to remember. That road was brilliant. I want to go back there actually and get some photos. Just that's one reason I put it in the video. It was a kind of to remind me that I need to go back there at some point. And it's a beautiful part of the world. And I didn't even know it was. There's some places like this you don't even know it's there until you actually visit. So yeah, so we headed to the rainforest as such, and I think it was been there since 1991. And I was kind of expecting it to be humid and hot in there, which it was, but it's also very dark with all the undergrowth and everything. And this is, I thought, well, this is going to test out the rx10 Mark IV for its ability to deal with the low light situation, and really push its boundaries. And as you'll see shortly, it didn't do too bad, but it did struggle big time in a few shots. I sort of failed with quite a few shots. The sun did come out, and which shone down through into it's basically a large greenhouse, massive greenhouse. And I did get some better shots later on once the sun came back out. As you can see there, it's sunny at the moment in the video, but it did basically start raining again, which I've had a lot of recently. And so the light was very limited, and I was pushing it up to sort of ISO 2000, 2500 sort of area, which with the rx10 Mark IV and its small sensor isn't really ideal. Luckily you have got a fast lens, so anything from f2.4 to f4, especially obviously the 600mm comes into play. It's quite good to have. Let's try and do a David Bellamy or a thingy impression. We're in the jungle, the rainforest, not in a greenhouse. What's in there?
It's like algae.
Oh, nice.
Some bananas.
Must be something in there.
Bananas.
Yeah, it must be an animal. There's a pond. Oh, he's right there, look.
Oh, a bird.
Yeah. Bird, 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 bird. It's very quiet. Yeah, they're real. They're eating shit. I think I broke it. So, like I said, really pushing the ISO and shutter speed sort of limits really. I had to be shooting quite low shutter speeds, anywhere sort of 1/80th of a second, even at sort of 600mm, even with a high ISO, because it just wasn't light in there at all. I mean, this bit was actually not too bad, where the butterflies were, but as you'll see in other bits, it was very dark, or shooting through sort of a little bit misty, damaged perspex or glass, which gave me a challenge. But you know, all in all, the camera worked quite well. But obviously, for the first 5 to 10 minutes, the front element was basically just steaming up, because obviously it had to acclimatise to the temperature change. We just come in from sort of 8 or 9 degrees Celsius into probably 25, 26, 27 degrees Celsius, something like that. But very high humidity as well. So very sort of steamy in there. This was a cool guy. He was a lizard of some sort, and posed quite nicely. And I'll be able to get a few shots of him quite close up. Plenty of light in this area, so it wasn't all that bad. But I think my minimum ISO was ISO 400. I never got back down to the 100, which is obviously ideal, but it didn't do too bad. You know, not bad at all really. Just shooting wide open, which isn't always ideal, because you want a little bit more depth sometimes, and you know, stopping the lens down to f5.6 if you can really can make a difference. But these shots are pretty cool. Just gave you that sort of feeling of you know, you were kind of in somewhere you know, that was quite rainforest like. But he was quite interesting. He just sort of sat there, just chilled, just looking at you, and his eyes were moving around. Very interesting. Plenty of foliage, flowers, things like that. But it was so dark in there, especially when the sun went back in and obviously it started raining again, that, you know, there wasn't a lot of light, especially when you're shooting into the sort of darker areas. It became difficult.
Gone to your hangar, right? Yeah?
Looks very happy about the situation.
Oh, it's making me feel sick. Oh no, it's making me feel. Oh no, oh Jesus Christ, no. Oh, oh, I can't even. No, I can't even. I don't think that padlock is big enough. Oh, that's creeping me out. That thing.
Oh yeah, you know, you're over there. Pushing on the dick. So, do you need another job? No. I got one way.
So you can see here, this bird was pretty interesting. Very dark though, and obviously Natalie didn't enjoy the massive spider. I think it's a tarantula of some sort. Here's some turtles. Everything was just, you can actually get quite close to stuff. The only trouble is when you're trying to shoot through glass like this, with this, I think it's a hissing cockroach, quite a big thing. But obviously video, it's a little bit easier because you can drop your shutter speeds right down to like 1/25 of a second in 4K, which actually gives you some quite good footage. But when you start trying to do the stills, trying to hand hold at 600mm stills at 1/25 of a second don't really work. But I managed to get this one. It was a 1/100th of a second, ISO 1000 at f4. The same with this little sort of blue poison arrow. I think it's a poison arrow frog or similar. Video, not too bad. Shooting through glass, you know, but getting stills very difficult. As you can see here, ISO 2500, quite grainy. But shooting through dirty, sort of not dirty glass, but sort of very humid glass, it was quite misted up almost, should I say. A couple of okay shots. Dropped the ISO down a little bit when he sort of stopped still. But still very difficult, very dark. Can't use the flash because obviously you're shooting through glass and obviously it'll freak the animals out. So you just wanted a brighter day. Same as this. This is actually to the naked eye, very in shade, hardly any light coming through, which you'll see in a second. But at 1/25 of a second, ISO 1000 on video, not a problem. But when you start taking stills like this, that's ISO 1600. This one's ISO 2000. But you're pushing, I'm shooting through sort of a fence as such. And as you can see at ISO 2000, you're struggling to get the light in there to actually get the detail that you need. A little bit of editing there. This shot here, when the sun came out, actually I managed to get a little bit of light in there just to get an okay shot. But obviously, ideal world, much better lighting and everything would have been brilliant, but obviously you can't have everything. So lots of different foliage and things like that. Quite interesting to see the types of plants and stuff you have growing in a rainforest. And as I say, it looks like there's plenty of light coming in, but that's just my shutter speed's quite slow. So it's actually very dark in there still. And I've actually slowed that down to about 1/50th of a second. This was a cool shot though. Really like this one. The sun came out and backlit the one of the big leaves there, so that worked quite nicely. And you can see how much water is in the air with that leaf. Quite a lot of cacti or cactus about as well. Well, I presume they're cactus or similar. Like I say, and plenty of interesting plucking plants. Quite amazing. They're very hardy, very sort of thick, and very strong or very sharp. So the textures and everything are quite interesting to actually look at.
Looks like it's up to no good. That's really black as well, isn't it?
Scratching and scratching.
I don't know, on camera shy, I'll go in.
Now onto a few of the other things. This bird here, very colourful, looked really cool, but again, very dull area where he was, or she was. Managed to get a couple of okay pictures, not particularly sharp, but trying to keep the ISO down as low as I could, but also shutter speeds as high as I could. Bit of a balancing act. I think in the summer it's probably going to be a completely different place to visit, and you've got plenty of light coming through, and it also add quite a bit of interesting lighting with shaded parts and everything as well, so it could actually make quite an atmospheric sort of feel to the images if you could actually get some good shots. An armadillo, I've never seen an armadillo before, but there's one. Getting photos quite difficult, as you can see here, not very sharp. Didn't stop moving, constantly like digging holes and walking around and things like that, and having my shutter speed down to sort of 1/80th, 100th of a second to try and get enough light in to actually get the shots I needed. Any movement like that, he was quite active, so very difficult to get the shot I kind of wanted. This shot here is actually ISO 2500, which I was quite surprised actually how well it actually turned out. But there was enough light there. Not sure what this was, but he's massive, kind of like a rodent of some sort, but he sat there quite well. And then the sun did come out a little bit for this large lizard. He was pretty cool actually, very interesting to look at with his eye and everything like that, and his skin and everything like that was quite cool. So photographing him was actually quite nice. But also looking through glass again, and they have a lot of schools go there, so lots of kids with dirty fingers and everything on the glass and things like that. So they struggle to keep things like that clean, as you can see here. There's just marks on the glass, unfortunately, but did what I could. Got the shots within reason, so not too bad in all. Kind of interesting place to visit actually, and we were up that way anyway, so it was kind of one of those places you go and see. It wasn't expensive, it was 11 quid I think each to go in, and it's I wouldn't make a special trip in again, but if I happen to be in that area, it's near Reading, and it's one of those places it's worth a visit if you're nearby. It's up the tree somewhere. I reckon we can find him. Probably in his hole, the box up there. Oh, there it is. Right over there. So, trying to find a sloth. Found it up a tree, but I couldn't get a shot of it, so that's the best I could do. But we know it's there. It just doesn't do a lot. I found the sloth. There we go. And a massive turtle. And some kind of lizard. So as we left the place, we could hear a Chinook or some kind of military aircraft coming. So I hung around for a moment or two until it appeared, and it was a Chinook coming very low. So shooting at ISO 100 and about 1/200th of a second or thereabouts, to get a slight bit of prop blur. And as he flew over, which is always nice, bit of military hardware, never goes amiss. Not a bad day and all. Quite enjoyed it. It was nice to get out and about and do something a little bit different. And you know, if you're heading that way, it's kind of is worth a visit. But obviously, take note. There's obviously lots of children go. School trips and everything. Apparently, they have 80,000 kids there go a year. I think it said. The moon was up, so daytime shot of the moon, and then a red kite. I think flying. And it was getting attacked by crows, which obviously like to bully birds like that in groups. So there's a bit of a heavy cropping already, so there you can see it is flying. But yeah, not a bad day all in all. It was just a case of make the most of the camera, try and push it, you know, as much as it could. I got quite a few shots that were not all that great, and just down to the ISO was too high or the shutter speed was too slow. You're kind of trying to balance your shots to get the best quality, but with a little bit of give and take to try and keep it sharp and less noise. Within you got a little bit, it's all right. A little bit of grain's not really an issue, but when you're pushing it up into 2,500 ISO 3200 or plus, it's no point, especially when you're shooting in a dark environment that's difficult and very challenging anyway. Unless you've got lighting, or more daylight coming through, where you can obviously then utilise the ISO a little bit to help you. It was very, very challenging. So, but like I say, it didn't do too bad. Some of these shots are okay. Some shots they're pretty poor, but they're still usable. It's one of those things, I guess. But here you go. It's all experimentation. Obviously, still learning new things with that camera in particular. Even if I use the A7R4 with a faster lens on it, so the 135 f1.8G master, or the 90mm macro, which is f2.8, you still got you've got a faster lens, but then your depth is sacrificed if you're wide open all the time. So you still got to crank the ISO up to give you a bit more control with your depth, with obviously your f-stop. So it is a bit of give and take. You just got to balance the camera. Doesn't matter what you're using at the end of the day, and to get the best out of it. So anyway, guys, any questions, please ask. And any thoughts of the video, any thoughts of the photos, blah blah blah, feel free to comment. And obviously, please click the notification bell and the subscribe button. That'd be amazing. And I shall see you soon.